morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the town of Braintree's Memorial Day service at Blue Hill Cemetery. Please stand for the national anthem. I would now like to ask the Braintree Veterans Council chaplain, Bert Tremley, to come and give our invocation.
Uncover. Heavenly Father, in thy hands the souls of the living and the dead. Remember, O God, we pray thee, the souls of our departed comrades. Conduct them into the place where they have prepared for them in thy heavenly kingdom. Bestow thy blessing and extend the healing power to the comrades who are still suffering from the tragedy of war. Lift up the hearts of those hardened with sorrow. Unto thy name be all honor and glory forever and ever. Amen. Cover.
Please be seated. Memorial Day is more than just hot dogs, barbecues, and parades on this last Monday of May. The national holiday was established to honor those who have died in American wars. Memorial Day was originally called Decoration Day. It originated during the American Civil War, when citizens would place flowers on graves of those who had been killed in battle. After the Civil War, many cities held observations in May for the families of both Confederate and Union soldiers who have died serving their cause. In 1868, John A. Logan, the Commander-in-Chief of the Grand Army of the Republic, an organization of Union veterans, promoted a national holiday on May 30th for the purpose of strewing with flowers, otherwise decoration the graves of comrades who died in the defense of their country during the late rebellion. After World War I, as this day came to be observed in honor of those who had died in all U.S. wars, this name changed from Decoration Day to Memorial Day. Since 1971, Memorial Day has been observed on the last Monday in May. At this time, I would like to introduce the Mayor of Braintree, Mayor Erin Joyce.
Good morning, everyone. That was quiet. You guys are far away. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I want to offer a special thanks to the Ridge family for hosting us here this morning in the beautiful Blue Hills Cemetery. And I also want to just share the appreciation for the beautiful and solemn grounds that you maintain for our loved ones. I also want to thank all of our veterans who are joining us here today. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you also to our Veteran Service Agent, Vincent Fontaine, and Mary Ficacello for organizing this morning's events, and tribute to all of our American soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, especially those who died in the lines of duty that we honor and remember this weekend on Memorial Day. We are so fortunate to be gathered here in this beautiful garden of honor this morning, rightly named after our own Corporal Gerald Gregory Bradley, a Braintree Marine who died in service to our great country during the Vietnam War. Corporal Gerald Gregory Bradley's memory lives on grandly in this space, grandly in the neighborhood he grew up in, Granite Park, and legendarily in the minds of those who knew and loved him. In receiving the silver medal awarded posthumously by the President of the United States to Corporal Gerald Gregory Bradley, the words used to describe him and describing his actions in war included things like conspicuous gallantry, intrepidity in action, boldly led, fearlessly maneuvered, courage, unwavering fighting spirit, steadfast devotion to duty, inspired, upholding, and in closing of the medal awarded, that he gallantly gave his life for his country. Those who loved him would probably add many more descriptors. I'm sure his hockey friends, knowing hockey friends, would have offered up some good ones too. Gone but not forgotten, especially this morning. I hope this weekend, while it's widely considered the kickoff to summer and filled with barbecues and parties, you will take the time to remember. You'll have a chance to ask your family and friends about memories they have for service members who have touched their lives and whose stories we remember this weekend. As a community, we owe an immense amount of gratitude and respect to those who have sacrificed so much. In too many situations, we remember those who sacrificed everything in their lives to protect our home, here in the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. And furthermore, here today, in the greatest town in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Braintree. When I was preparing for the remarks this Memorial Day weekend, my first Memorial Day serving as your mayor, and having the privilege to offer remarks here, I was talking about what Memorial Day means with my family. And my husband, Michael, shared a story near to him, and I wanted to share it all with you this morning. I want to take a moment to remember my husband's great uncle, Mr. Arthur Joseph Minkle Jr., fireman first class. His great uncle, whom he never had the chance to meet, was a casualty of World War II, serving in honor in our United States Navy. Fireman first class Minkle was aboard the submarine, the USS Growler, along with 89 other American sailors when it was sunk by Japanese vessels west of the Philippines on November 8, 1944. Our great uncle is missing in action, still unfound, but always remembered, and especially here today as I have this unique opportunity to remember him with all of you. At the time of his death and disappearance, the family was notified, of course, but with very little information, as was the unfortunate reality for so many families who go on to mourn the death of a loved one lost to war. Imagine losing a loved one so suddenly and being unable to learn of the details. As my mother-in-law shared this weekend, even after the family knew he was missing, they weren't supposed to talk about it. They weren't supposed to tell their neighbors or anyone else, because loose lips sink ships. While that's become somewhat of a catchphrase over the years, it really was the truth. And we had so many soldiers on ships whose lives could be at stake if the enemy were to learn of their location and mission. In fact, we still do have so many service members on top secret missions all over the world protecting us today. So today, I remember not only our great uncle, Fireman First Class, Mr. Arthur Joseph Minkle Jr., who remains missing in action, and Corporal Gerald Gregory Bradley, our own brave Marine who died in action during the Vietnam War and whose memorial we gather on today. But I remember all of our community members who gave their lives in the protection of our freedom and our country. I offer a forever gratitude for our American soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. Thank you for your sacrifice. Today, let us take a moment to speak aloud the memories of those we lost as they were bravely protecting our home and our freedom. As poet Thomas Campbell wrote in his poem, Hallowed Ground, "To live in hearts we leave behind is not to die." Thank you so much for attending here today. I hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. I'm pleased to introduce a valued colleague of our community, Congressman Stephen Lynch, who we are happy to have with us here today. Congressman Lynch continues to be a proud partner of our town, and I'm very happy to offer him an opportunity to share some remarks here this morning. Welcome, Congressman Lynch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It is a joy for me to be here with you. I want to thank our South Middle School chorus under the direction of choral director Amy Willett. Thank you so much for that beautiful rendition of the national anthem. Thank you so much. Reverend Clergy, Bert Tremblay, thank you for your blessing, Mr. Chaplain. And I also want to recognize and thank Vincent Fontaine, our veteran service officer here in Braintree. Massachusetts is one of the few states that requires by law that each and every town be represented by a veteran service officer. And so Vincent handles that responsibility for us here in Braintree. And it matters not whether that veteran is a World War II veteran that might be seeking the first assistance that they have in their life as a veteran, or whether it's a younger veteran returning from Iraq or Afghanistan. Vincent is so dedicated and loyal, not only to those veterans returning, but also to their families. So he has been a blessing and a partner for my office in terms of trying to make sure that not only do we respect the service of our active military, but we greatly appreciate for what they have done and continue to do as far as their example to others when they return to this community. So thank you, Vince Fontaine, for your great work. And the reason that each and every town in Massachusetts has a veteran service officer is because of our state delegation. So I know that Senator Walter Timothy and Senator John Keenan are here today, and Mark Cusack as well. So I want to thank them for remembering to dedicate the resources of this Commonwealth to make sure that our veterans are taken care of as well. Thank you, Senators, and thank you, Representative, as well. We are gathered here today in tribute to the brave men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. And Memorial Day is a solemn observance of our nation's remembrance and our loyalty to those who have served in uniform. You know, I live in South Boston, and for the past 30 years, my mother-in-law lived downstairs. I should say I live with her, but Helen Shaughnessy was a Gold Star mother. A Gold Star sister, Her brother Arnie, he was killed in his first parachute jump over the Rhine in Operation Varsity, just a couple of months before the end of World War II. He was killed in that jump over the Rhine. He was 19 years old, and Helen was younger. She was 15. But she carried the burden of her as a Gold Star family member, and her mother, my wife's grandmother, was the president of the Gold Star Mothers Society in Boston at the time. And of course, in World War II, there were many, many, many Gold Star mothers that graced our community. But my mother-in-law always said that her two favorite holidays were Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And she said it was because while she carried that burden of a Gold Star family member 365 days a year and never forgot it, she said on Veterans Day and today, Memorial Day, she felt like her little neighborhood, her city, her state, and her country helped her carry that burden on that particular day. So that's why we are here today. We're here today because there are Gold Star families out there everywhere, in Braintree and across the state and across this country. And our presence here today is really to be uplifting for those who carry that burden every day of their lives. It's also to recognize the valor, the courage of their loved ones who rendered such sacrifice to us all so that we might enjoy the freedoms that we do every single day. We take time over Memorial Day weekend to honor and remember the patriotism as well as that unspeakable sacrifice rendered by the courageous Americans who served our nation's military and gave their lives for our freedom. So your presence here today is important. It's really, really important that you are here today to carry on that obligation that we have not only to past veterans, but to today's veterans as well. Several weeks ago, I had a chance to travel to Ukraine. Democracy is under attack in Ukraine. There's a land war in Europe. And it's important to understand that while we are not at war, a declared war, we have sons and daughters in uniform on the ground. Actually, I was taken into Ukraine by the United States Army 10th Mountain Division. Took me in a train that took about eight hours to go from Przemysl in Poland to Ukraine so that I could meet with President Zelensky. We have men and women in uniform in Iraq today, in Afghanistan today, in Syria today, in Somalia today, in Benin, in North Africa today, all around the world. And the more I talk to them, I asked on the train, an 8-hour ride, we had plenty of time to chat. I asked the young men and women from the 10th Mountain Division, why are you here? What caused you to serve? What inspired you to put on that uniform? And every single one of them said, well, you know, my dad served. Or I have a brother who served in the first Gulf War. Or my dad served in Vietnam. Or I had a grandfather or a grandmother who served during World War II. So I want to thank today's veterans not only for their own service and sacrifice, I want to thank them for their example, because so many of our active military today are serving this country for the very same reasons, because of the inspiration that they receive from their parents and grandparents and brothers and sisters in their own family's history. Today signifies our appreciations for those who gave their lives while serving in the United States Armed Services. It is great for me to be here in Braintree, and it was wonderful to get out of Washington, I might add. You know, the one thing that troubles me, though, is that amidst all the craziness and stuff that you see on TV, it might be the case that people don't understand the good things that are going on in Washington. And I just want to talk about two of them. I want to talk about two of them. And before I forget, I just want to make sure I acknowledge my friend Dan Cliffords, who's here, a town councilor from Braintree who's done wonderful service and is struggling a little bit. But we love him and we appreciate his service to Braintree. But a couple of things I want to talk about. One is the PAC Act. You probably haven't heard of it, but it's the promise, promise to address toxins that members of the U.S. military were exposed to over their service, during their military service. And it covers over 5 million men and women who are in the military, it's retroactive back to Vietnam to the current day. So in many cases, men and women who served our country came home with hidden wounds or disabilities. I had a woman come to me, her name was Kim Brooks. Her husband had recently passed away from a very unusual form of cancer. He was from Norwood, Lieutenant Colonel Brooks, and he was serving in Uzbekistan, just north of Afghanistan, at a military base that we had taken over from the Russians. The Russians used it years ago, and they had an airfield there, so when the U.S. came in, the Uzbeki government allowed us to use it. What we did not know, however, was that when the Russians left, they dumped petroleum, they dumped radioactive materials and other elements that were injurious to people in that area. We didn't know that at the time. So we had thousands and thousands of U.S. soldiers who served at K2. It's called Kashni Karabad. It's in Uzbekistan. And slowly, as was the case with Mrs. Brooks, I started getting calls that their loved ones had also succumbed to these very rare forms of liver cancer, brain cancer, young men and women. So I held hearings as the chair of the National Security Subcommittee. I held hearings. We put social media out there so that a lot of families came in. There was a group called Operation Stronghold that they represented the veterans. And so we put legislation forward. It was originally called the K2 Veterans Act because I was just dealing with this one base in Uzbekistan. But then my colleagues in the Senate added that into the PAC Act. So what happens now is that anyone who served in any of those conflicts, from Vietnam to Afghanistan and continuing to this day, who was exposed to any toxic substances or radioactive substances, is automatically presumptively eligible for health care at the VA, and their family members, if they should perish, are also eligible for benefits as survivors of those veterans who passed because of their exposure to those substances. So just to give you an idea, in the past week, we've recently deployed this. In the past week, in our little congressional district, we've had over 2,000 veterans and family members that have filed claims under that act. So thanks to your largesse, thanks to your loyalty, thanks to your kindness and remembrance of veterans, we were able to provide benefits to over 5.17 million veterans in this country who will never have to worry again about whether their health care is covered or whether their families will receive the benefits if they do perish from their war injuries. The second piece of legislation was simply funding that we we're able to award to Operation Home Base. Operation Home Base is a joint operation between the Mass General Hospital and the Boston Red Sox. God bless them. And so what they do is they have a facility in Charlestown that I've been to many times, where they actually bring veterans in who are experiencing adverse conditions because of PTSD. They might be recent returnees from Iraq or Afghanistan, or they might be veterans who served in Vietnam and are still feeling the lingering psychological effects of the trauma that they received there. So General Jack Hammond runs that program, and not only is he able to take veterans in who have received injuries from past service, but he's also able to bring in active duty military, Department of Defense, active military, to bring them in if they're on the battlefield in Syria or elsewhere and need some psychological support or just some rehabilitation before they can be returned to the battlefield. So I want to thank Senator Markey and Senator Warren, who joined with me in making sure that the millions of dollars in federal funding went to home base to benefit all of our veterans. In closing, one of the great things I get to do as a United States Congressman is nominate young people to our military academies, to the Coast Guard Academy, to the Naval Academy, to the U.S. Army facility academy at West Point, or the Merchant Marine Academy. And this is a big commitment for young people. It's a competitive process, very competitive process. But Braintree has a long and strong history of sending young men and women to serve at our academies. When they decide to attend a service academy, these young people are also choosing to live up to the example set by every other man and woman who has honorably served, and those who have set the ultimate example of courage, honor, duty, commitment, and sacrifice. So today I just want to recognize a few of the recent Braintree young people who have been willing. Not only do they go to the academies, but they're committed to 5 years of service beyond that. So it's a tremendous commitment for a young person to dedicate 8 years of their lives to anything, especially to the academies. So today I would like to recognize Genevieve Tang. Genevieve graduated from Braintree High School. Her parents are Ming and Cece, and she graduated the United States Military Academy just recently in the class of 2023 from West Point. I also was pleased to nominate Jack Gordon Grace. He went to Braintree High School as well. His parents are Thomas and Janine, and I nominated him to the United States Naval Academy earlier this year. So if you do the math, I think he would be a graduate of the class of 2026. So to all our veterans here, thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for the example that you continue to provide to these young people and others who currently wear the uniform. I want to thank Braintree, the town of Braintree, and the mayor especially, and the Ridge family for the way this is the prettiest. I have 18 towns and 3 cities in my district. This is the prettiest and most dignified remembrance that I attend during the year in my congressional district. May God bless the people of Braintree. Thank you for remembering our veterans, and may God continue to bless these United States of America. Thank you.
We will now have the reading of the proclamation from the Governor of our Commonwealth by East Middle School student, Project 351 Ambassador, Natalie Watson.
Where am I supposed to read? Why did you give it to me? Should I read off my phone? Yeah. A proclamation. Whereas, while the nation was still recovering from the Civil War, peoples in cities and towns across the country gathered to honor the soldiers who had given their lives celebrating the first Decoration Day. And whereas after World War I, the nation came together again to honor those who had fallen in the service of their country. Renamed Memorial Day, the last Monday in May, is when people remember and honor the memory of all men and women who fought and died in all American wars and conflicts. And whereas throughout our country's history, thousands of Massachusetts residents have fought in wars and conflicts to defend our safety and way of life. And whereas their legacy of patriotism and dedication to our country is an inspiration to all Americans. And whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts residents remember the bravery of those who have given their lives so that their sacrifice serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. Now, therefore, I, Maura T. Healy, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim May 27, 2024 to be Memorial Day.
At this time, I'd like to ask State Senator Walter F. Timmerly to come forward and say a few words.
Good morning, Vinny. Good morning. Good morning, Vinny. Thank you very much. A special thanks, and I offer these remarks on behalf of my friends and colleagues, Representative Cusack and Senator John Keenan. And right off the bat, I'd like to thank Chorus from the South Middle School. You're magnificent. Thank you. And, of course, a very special thanks to each and every veteran today, represented by the Braintree Veterans Council, and our commanders, of course, Commander Vidal, Commander Williams, Commander Bourne, Commander Fontaine, and, of course, our mayor. Thank you, Mayor, very much for hosting us. And, of course, the Reading Project 351 ambassador. Thank you so much. You did a magnificent job. And it is an honor to follow our congressman as well on the speaking program. Congressman, thank you. You are a wonderful friend and partner to each and every resident of this town and each and every resident of your district. We thank you, and it is a privilege to work with you. Today, on this Memorial Day, we gather to honor the brave service members of the United States Armed Forces who have made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our great nation. We remember, we reflect, and pay tribute to these courageous heroes who valiantly gave their lives in service so that we may enjoy our freedom. Specifically, Senator Keenan, Rep. Cusack, and I believe that it is imperative to illuminate our heroes and our heroines and share some of their stories of sacrifice. Let us remember Navy SEALs Nathan Gage Ingram and Christopher J. Chambers, who in January of this year attempted to board an unflagged ship in the Arabian Sea carrying Iranian-made weapons on behalf of the terrorist regime in Tehran, 2 Yemen. As the Navy SEALs left their boat to climb the terrorist smuggler's ship, waves widened the gap between the vessels. Sailor Chambers plunged into the water, and Ingram immediately jumped in, as all SEALs will do, and all American service members, I would dare say, will do, to save their comrade and their fellow sailor. While the United States Navy successfully confiscated the weapons and apprehended all on board, dealing a blow in our ongoing war against terrorism, Navy SEALs Ingram and Chambers were never seen again, lost at sea. Their sacrifice reminds us of the ever-present dangers inherent in military service in the finest armed forces the world has ever seen, the United States military. Moreover, let us all remember United States Army Private First Class Frederick Coleman Murphy. PFC Murphy served our country as a medic during World War II in the European Theater of Operations, fighting the Nazis. A South Shore resident, PFC Murphy was born in Boston, lived in Quincy, and graduated from Thayer Academy right here in the town of Braintree. He enlisted for service in Weymouth, serving in the United States Army Medical Detachment in the 259th Infantry, 65th Infantry Division. As a medic with E Company, 259th Infantry, PFC Murphy landed in France in January of 1945, just 4 months roughly before the cessation of hostilities and the defeat of Hitler's evil Nazi regime. 2 months later, the 65th Infantry Division undertook its first major combat assignment to break through the reputedly invincible defenses of the Siegfried Line near Saarlauten, Germany, the last line of defenses that the Allies had to breach to enter the western parts of Germany. PFC Murphy was wounded in the right shoulder soon after his company had jumped off from the line of departure in an early dawn attack on March 18, 1945 at the Siegfried Line. However, he refused to withdraw in the spirit of the American fighting service member for treatment, and he continued forward, administering first aid to other wounded while under heavy machine gun, mortar, and artillery fire. When the company ran into a thickly sown anti-personnel minefield and began to sustain even more casualties, PFC Murphy continued on despite his serious wounds, disregarding his own wound, of course, and unhesitatingly braved the danger of exploding anti-personnel mines triggered by his comrades, his fellow soldiers, moving about through heavy fire, helping his fellow wounded until PFC Murphy himself stepped on an anti-personnel mine, which then severed one of his feet. But this grave injury did not stop PFC Murphy. In spite of his own grievous wounds, PFC Murphy struggled on with his work as a medic, tending to others, refusing medevac. PFC Murphy crawled from man to man, administering them while in great pain and bleeding profusely. Finally, tragically, PFC Murphy crawled over a second anti-personnel mine in an effort to reach another fallen soldier, killing him instantly. With this indomitable courage and unquenchable spirit of self-sacrifice and supreme devotion to duty, which made it possible for him to continue performing his tasks while barely able to move, the brave PFC Murphy saved many of his fellow soldiers at the cost of his own life. For his bravery in placing others' lives above his own, PFC Murphy had the Congressional Medal of Honor bestowed upon him posthumously by President Harry S. Truman. There are hundreds of thousands of these stories of sacrifice, I would even suggest millions, of the American service member, of the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, members of the Army Air Corps pre-1947. And each and every time I hear these stories, I am humbled. These stories are truly heart-wrenching and inspiring, detailing what our brave service members have endured throughout the wonderful and magnificent history of the United States military. As proud and thankful Americans, we must remember that our freedom is not free. Heroes from some of our very own families or neighborhoods here in the great town of Braintree and throughout the South Shore have paid the highest price. They have sacrificed their own lives for the safety of our nation, for the safety of each and every one of us. Today, let us honor our heroes and heroines by remembering their courage, their sacrifice, and their unwavering commitment to our nation, its freedoms, its liberties, and the liberties and freedoms that our American service members have preserved around the globe. May the legacy of our service members inspire us to cherish our freedom and protect it for generations to come. Thank you. God bless our veterans. God bless our honored dead who have made the ultimate sacrifice for us all. And God bless America. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to ask Counselor Joe Reynolds to come forward to read General Logan's charge.
Headquarters, Grand Army of the Republic, Washington, D.C., May 5th, 1868. General Orders Number 11. The 30th day of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land. In this observance, no form or ceremony is prescribed, but posts and comrades will, in their own way, arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances may permit. We are organized, comrades, as our regulations tell us, for the purpose, among other things, of preserving and strengthening those kind and fraternal feelings which have bound together the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who united to suppress the late rebellion. What aid can more to assure this result than by our cherishing tenderly the memory of our heroic dead who made their breasts a barricade between our country and its foes. Their soldier lives where the reveal of freedom to a race in chains, and their deaths the tattoo of rebellious tyranny in arms. We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. All that the consecrated wealth and taste of the nation can add to their adornment and security is but a fitting tribute to the memory of her slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely on such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no vandalism of avarice or neglect, no ravages of time, testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten, as a people, the cost of a free and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull and other hands slack and other hearts cold in the solemn trust, ours shall keep it well as long as the light and warmth of life remains in us. Let us, then, at the time appointed, gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them. With choicest flowers of springtime, let us raise above them the dear old flag they saved from dishonor. Let us in this solemn presence renew our pledges to aid and assist those whom they have left among us as sacred charges upon the nation's gratitude, the soldiers and sailors, widow and orphan. It is the purpose of the Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate this observance with the hope that it will be kept up from year to year, while the survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of his departed comrades. He earnestly desires the public press to call attention to this order and lend its friendly aid in bringing it to the notice of comrades in all parts of the country in time for simultaneous compliance therewith. Department commanders will use every effort to make this order effective. By command of John A. Logan, Commander-in-Chief.
At this time, I would like to ask members of American Legion Post 86 and the Braintree VFW to come up and read the names of those veterans we have lost this past year.
These are our fallen comrades of this year, of 223, 224. Paul G. Agnew, Braintree Veterans Council Adjutant Thomas J. Colligan, Past Commander Chaplain Catherine K. Connolly, Donald J. Curtin, Frank Drogo Sr., Past Massachusetts State Disabled American Veterans Commander, Nicholas Florigentino, Ray A. Hall, Barry T. Hannon, Glenn Lorenzen, William Manley Jr., Joseph Marinelli, Alton Parker Nadeau, Joseph Sheehan, Past Commander Carl Vitigliano.
We are now going to conduct our memorial service. The Massachusetts 9th will lead it off. Please stand. Please stand. Present arms. Please be seated. I would like to now introduce Angela Trulson, granddaughter of Frank Drogo Sr.
Good morning. Congressman Lynch, Senators Timilty and Keenan, Representative Cusack, Mayor Joyce, former Mayor Kokoris, Vinnie, Mary, thank you for inviting me today to speak about my grandfather. My grandfather, Frank Joseph Drogo Sr., he was a very proud man. He was proud to have served his country in the United States Navy. He was proud to be a frogman. Today we know them as the elite group, the Navy SEALs. He was proud to have served his community through the work he did with the various veteran organizations he belonged to. He was proud to raise his family in Braintree, a town strong in its support of our United States Armed Forces and strong in its advocacy for veterans. Braintree never forgets. You can be reminded of this as you drive through town and see the beautiful faces that adorn banners lining the streets. Some of these faces never made it home. Braintree never forgets. My grandfather's banner is proudly displayed on Washington Street, and I often take the long way home just so I can pass by and throw him a kiss. I find comfort in knowing how proud he was when I took him to see it for the very first time. Although he is no longer here on this earth, he will not be forgotten. Braintree never forgets. Because of my grampy, I was raised to understand the true meaning of Memorial Day. I have many memories of him standing right here in this very spot, delivering the message that Memorial Day is a time to honor and a time to remember those that made the ultimate sacrifice. It is because he instilled these values in me that I can instill these very same values in my own children, which is one of the greatest gifts I have ever received. Braintree never forgets, and neither will I. Thank you. At this time, it is my honor and privilege to introduce our guest speaker, Colonel Tayona A. Enriquez. She entered the Air Force in 2001 as a graduate of the Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps at the University of New Mexico, Albuquerque. She currently serves as the commander, 66th Air Base Group, Hanscom Air Force Base, Massachusetts. The group supports the Air Force acquisition mission, providing base, regional, and readiness support for the Air Force Life Cycle Management Center, 3 program executive offices, MIT Lincoln Laboratory, a variety of other tenant organizations in a joint service military housing community. Please welcome Colonel Enriquez to the podium.
Good morning. It's a privilege to be with you all here this morning. And really from this view and looking out, I'm going to start with some thank yous, but I draw some quick correlations. And so I want to say thank you for the invite and the opportunity to be here. Vincent Fontaine, Lieutenant Colonel Fred McGuire, for giving me this opportunity. I'd also like to say Congressman Lynch, it's great to meet you, sir. Mayor Joyce, congratulations on your new term. State Senators Timothy Keenan and House Representative Kuzak, I'm proud to share the stage with you. So as we look out around us, I need to start with the schools because it's never too late. All of our speakers spoke before the impact, what made the impact in our lives, or at what point we were touched. But the school representation here and the family with the young ones, this is our future. You are our future. So from South Middle School, the South Middle School Chorus, I also have the high school. We have, I apologize, East Middle School. We had our speaker here, who, let me tell you, I was not in high school speaking in front of a representative, just saying. So well done. But I will share with you, as they are here with us today, and I see many of you out in the crowd, I was in 6th grade the first time I ever visited a national cemetery. My father, Specialist Ben B. Padilla, was being buried. I had no idea that he had served because he didn't talk about it. I had no idea that he had 3 Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star because he didn't talk about it. As a matter of fact, he lived his life and it was cut short, and he never talked to us about it. He had some challenges that he had to work through from the Korean War that were grave and overshadowed a lot of what he knew. But me as his granddaughter, he was all I knew, and he was the best grandpa I could have asked for. And so at 6th grade, which is the age of many of you here to my left, the day that I heard the 21 gun salute and taps play for the first time was the day I knew I was joining the military. I had no idea what that meant, no idea, but I knew it was a service that I wanted to be proud of, something that was bigger than me, and I knew without hesitation that if I could fight for my nation like my grandpa did, then I would be doing really well. And that began my journey. So here I am 23 years later, getting ready. I retire in July, but I will tell you, I've never forgotten from that early, inspiring age of the impact that I could make. So there's my challenge to you. And you don't have to do it in this uniform, any uniform, or even as a civilian, but service to your nation is what we need. And I think we're in a time of consequence, and we know that more than ever. And those before us in this hallowed ground knew that as well during their time. So I'd like to begin this morning to saying thank you to all of the family, friends, spouses, sons, daughters of military members, past and present here today. We have the privilege to wear this uniform because you loved us. And without your love and support for us, we could not don this uniform, and neither could any of those before me or those coming after us. It's impossible. It's because of each and every one of you and your sacrifices, both professionally, personally, family, every part of your life you sacrificed so those of us could wear this uniform. So on behalf of all military members, past and present, I want to send a huge thank you to each and every one of you for your love for us and for enabling us to pursue our dreams. It's a privilege to address you all on Memorial Day weekend, a sacred time of year for us to honor our fallen heroes. Serving in the United States Air Force has allowed me the privilege of serving alongside some of the finest individuals in this nation. These men and women embody the greatest of our American values: courage, commitment, selflessness, integrity, service before self. And I'm mindful also in the sacrifices made by our present servicemen and women. From the earliest days of the American Revolution and civil wars to our present conflicts overseas, members of our United States have stood on the front lines defending our values and our way of life. Here in this sacred ground lies some of the finest among them, individuals who answered our nation's calls without hesitation, individuals who made the ultimate sacrifice so that we may live in peace and freedom. Blue Hills Cemetery was established in 1892 and more than 6,000 veterans have been laid to rest here. Each headstone represents a life lived with purpose, a life dedicated to the defense of freedom. I cannot imagine a more suitable place than these hallowed grounds to pay tribute to those brave men and women. We gather not only to remember their brave acts, but to ensure that their legacies endure for generations. I learned of one particular hero laid to rest here in Blue Hills, a Vietnam War casualty by the name of Corporal Gerald Gregory Bradley, United States Marine Corps. Corporal Bradley was awarded the Silver Star for his gallant actions while service as a platoon sergeant in Vietnam. While patrolling in the villages of Kam Sa, Corporal Bradley and his company came under intense small arms and automatic weapons fire. Disregarding his own safety, Corporal Bradley led 2 squads of Marines in an aggressive attack, directing fire against hostile positions. Corporal Bradley remained exposed to the enemy fire while he continued to lead his men until he was mortally wounded. His courage inspired all of his fellow platoon members as he upheld the highest devotion to duty by giving his life for our country. I share this story with you all because Corporal Bradley is a representation of all of our fallen heroes, and because it is our responsibility to keep their memories alive. As we depart from this sacred place today, let us carry with us the memories of those who have gone before us. Let us honor their legacy, not only in words, but with our actions, by not taking our freedoms for granted, and by striving to create a better nation for our future generations. May we never forget the sacrifices of our fallen heroes, and may their memories live on in all of us. Thank you all, and may God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Colonel. I will now once again call upon Braintree Veteran Council Chaplain Bert Tremley to give the benediction.
Uncover. Heavenly Father, as we depart this sacred land, may we go home in peace and safety through the Christ our Lord. Amen. Cover.
In conclusion, I would like to thank those who have assisted and partook in today's ceremony. I would like to take a moment to thank the South Middle School Chorus, Brian McNamee, Braintree Fire Department, Georgia O'Connell, TAPS, Recreation Department, DPW, and the Facilities Department for helping prepare for today's ceremony. A special thank you to my coworker Mary Ficacello and Paul Marshall, who has been a great help to me in everyday duties as well as caring for the Braintree veterans. I would like to also thank Jerry Ridge and his staff for preparing this Blue Hill Cemetery for our celebration every year, particularly this Garden of Honor. Thank you to BCAM for broadcasting this event. Please join us for a collation at the Foster Veteran Center, 30 Foster Road. The courage and sacrifice will always be remembered. May the spirit of Memorial Day remind us of the price of freedom and inspire us to live with gratitude and compassion. Thank you for being here today.